Well, hello and welcome to this week's A Photographic Life. I'm often asked whether I have any stories from the many photographic shoots with celebrities I have been on. I therefore have a stock answer that yes, I have, and retell experiences with David Bowie, Ralph Fiennes, Kylie Minogue, Victoria Beckham and Ronnie Wood. They're my go-to stories, I suppose. I'll leave you to guess which one of those was a negative tale to tell. However, I never tell the story of my day with Lady Gaga. And so this week I thought I would share with you memories of perhaps the most ridiculous photo shoot I have ever been involved with. The year was 2009 and Lady Gaga was a big deal. Not as big as she has become since, but big enough for her to bring to the shoot in central London her own creative team, which she titled The House of GaGa. I should say house, spelt in the German sense. Marcus Klinko was the photographer. A photographer with a Hasselblad camera with a mammoth horn handle. Perhaps that points to the direction in which this shoot was about to go. Klinko worked alongside his Indian-born post-production partner. I don't know if they're any closer than that. Indrani Pal Chowdhury. They'd worked together since 1996. They no longer work together today. Anyway, the idea behind the shoot was Lady Gaga and clothes or looks inspired by the children's toy company Hello Kitty. The idea was Gaga should look like that, dress up in that style. Anyway, who is Marcus Klinko? Well, he was born in Switzerland, French, Italian, Jewish and Hungarian descent, and spent his early years training to become a classical harp soloist. He studied at the Conservatoire National Supérieur de Musique, and later Klinko signed an exclusive recording contract with EMI Classics, as well as a management contract with Columbia Artist Management. He received the Grand Prix de Disque for his recording of French harp music with members of the orchestra of the Paris Opera, Bastille. Klinko performed in recitals and as a featured soloist with symphony orchestras around the world. So not your obvious training to be a photographer. However, after a hand injury in 1994, he decided to become a fashion photographer and retired from his international concert and recording career. During this time, Klinko met Indrani, who became a regular collaborator, as I've said, in her role as his studio's digital post-production artist, retoucher, and photo editor. Well-known fashion editor and general, character of chaos, Isabella Blow, discovered Klinko's work while working at the Sunday Times and commissioned cover stories from the emerging photographer. Around the same time, Ingrid Siski at Andy Warhol's Interview magazine in New York hired Klinko for various shoots also, including Iman and David Bowie, who gave the up-and-coming photographer a chance to photograph them for their respective book, I Am Iman, and also to do the album cover for Bowie's album Heathen. From there, he went on to create iconic album covers, including Beyoncé's Dangerously in Love and Mariah Carey's The Emancipation of Mimi, show Double Exposure. Now, that's the background to the whole thing. But what was the background to the shoot? Well, it was all due to happen, as I say, in central London, in a kind of an old Masonic temple that seemed to be connected to a hotel. You could walk through the hotel directly into this rather strange Masonic room. It was very large and very obviously at one point a Masonic temple. It was a boiling hot day, absolutely sweltering. And obviously there was no air conditioning or anything like that. Now, it had been suggested to me that it was being filmed, the shoot, for an American TV show in which the production company would follow Klinko around the world on various shoots. And obviously Lady Gaga would be a great episode for them. So it was recommended to me, it suggested to me that I should go along because I could observe, I could kind of be an art director. I could have some input, or it was very foggy. But anyway, I went along to see what was happening. The moment I got there, I could not believe the character of Klinko. He was absolutely the most outrageous, loud, demonstrative photographer I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot by that stage. Indrani, I suppose, and the opposite to that, she was very quiet, seemed very determined and very steely, but seemed to have a very strong idea about how the pictures were going to look. They were arguing the moment I arrived, and that arguing just got worse and worse and worse until they started to become openly hostile to each other. Meanwhile, Lady GaGa was getting ready. The hours ticked by. It got hotter and hotter. Indrani and Klinko seemed to be getting on even worse. There seems to be no thaw in that relationship. Now, I've waited for celebrities before. I've worked on very long shoots. Once, 24 hours, with Janet Jackson in Los Angeles. 24 hours was how long the whole thing took. And we got 6 pictures out of those 24 hours. Obviously, we weren't in the studio the whole time, but she took over a studio next door in which she built a tented village, including a tent for her florist, which filled the space with white lilies. But maybe that's another story for another day. But anyway, I'm not surprised when artists take a long time. Lady GaGa appeared finally. She also wasn't very happy, it seemed, and immediately started to take her clothes off in the middle of the Masonic temple to put on the outfits. There were no set dressing rooms here because it wasn't an appropriate space. And don't forget also, we had film cameramen around us, as well as myself, Klinko and Indrani, kind of in the middle of the thing. Anyway, suffice to say, the pictures, as always happened, did turn out. Did they turn out okay? Well, if you look on the internet, they're all over the place. There are lots and lots of pictures of them. It turned me to look at Klinko's work again recently when I was reminded of this story because I'd completely forgotten about it. With the release, I think there's a new GaGa album or concert going on. And I saw it and I immediately remembered this day. I think what it showed me was that I didn't really want to work in that world anymore. The shallowness and the egos were just too much. It seemed to me that everything had been ramped up, as Spinal Tap would say, to at least 11. And that doesn't really lead to great creativity. The portrait that Klinko did of Bowie, which is on the cover of Heathen, is a beautifully considered picture. The pictures we did that day with GaGa were mad. We had her standing on the top of high ledges between columns. It was, without a doubt, dangerous. I'm sure later on in her career she wouldn't have agreed to do it. We dressed her up in all of these costumes with cuddly toys attached to them and so forth. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you can have a look at these pictures as well. Anyway, that was the last shoot I ever did like that. And I have to say it was certainly one to finish with. Now on to something a little calmer, I hope, a little bit more sedate. Tickets have been selling really well for our Photographic live event at Oxford Brookes University on Sunday, the 26th of October. However, there are still a few left. Tickets are free. All you need to do is to register, and you do that through Eventbrite. The links to register are in the show notes, and also there is an article at UnitedNationsOfPhotography.com where you can follow a link, and it will give you full information on that article. It's at Oxford Brookes University, as I say, and I'll be talking with photographer Chris Floyd about communication, filmmaker and photographer Alice Tomlinson about the journey, and certainly about her most recent film, Mother Vera, and also Michael Pritchard from the Royal Photographic Society about the importance of archives, archiving our work, and how do we actually deal with archives. I think that in particular will be a very useful discussion. Each of the discussions will be recorded for future episodes of the podcast, but it would be great to see you there in person and obviously to meet you. There's lots of parking at Oxford Brookes, unlike the rest of Oxford. It's at a reasonable price as well. There's a cafe, there's a kind of area where you can get food and drink, and it's in a brand new building, which is very, very impressive. There'll also be an exhibition of work, The Night Climbers of Oxford, by one of my graduates, Austin Bradley from Oxford Brookes University. And that work documents the people who climb the roofs of Oxford 2, 3 o'clock in the morning without any safety precautions whatsoever, and I have to say illegally. It's an incredible body of work that references John Berger's famous pictures of the night climbers, I think, of Cambridge. Anyway, so that will be on also, so you'll be able to watch that. So a great day of photography for free. Make sure you register. If you haven't already visited our website, unitednationsofphotography.com, now's probably a really good time to do so, because after a couple of years, I've redesigned it. And you seem to be enjoying the redesign. I'm getting lots of positive comments. I've tried to make it easier to read and also easier to navigate. You'll find there not only this podcast, our podcast, and information about bits and pieces that we do, but also a huge archive of articles about photography, about engagement with photography, about how to improve your photography. Not technical, as always, not camera reviews, although I did write one recently about the camera, the Canon, I should say, 5D, typical of me, a camera that came out in 2006, and I finally got round to write about it. But there you go. That's the way we do things. So if you are looking for inspiration, information, and a little bit of entertainment, may I recommend that you head over to unitednationsofphotography.com. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I was talking recently to the head of photography at a higher education college, and I was talking to him about his students and how things were going and were young people getting engaged with photography. And he told me this, which I thought was very interesting, but also pointed to a major issue in the world of photography today, perhaps with people my age and a little bit older. It's up to you, I think, as listeners, to decide whether or not you fall into the category I'm talking about. So, in the UK, once you've done your GCSEs, I should say GCSEs, used to be O-levels in my day, at around age 16, you do about 9 or 10 of those, I think, you can then go on, in fact, you have to go on to some form of further education at college, and a lot of students will do what we refer to as A-levels, and you have to do 3 A-levels. And the students quite often choose the 2 more difficult ones and an easy one to try and make their life easier. And he was saying how many of his students choose photography as the easy option. Therefore, he had 73 students in his first year studying photography, and this current year he had 78. He said to me that at tops, he can get up to 200 students studying photography at this level, all of whom taking it on as a slightly softer, easier option than perhaps English or geography or maths or any other subject they choose to do. Well, I was amazed by how high this was in this engagement with photography. So I said to him, well, okay, so if you've got that level of interest in people who seem to think that this is easy, then how many of those students 2 years later decide to continue with their education with the medium? And he said, well, out of that number, about 7 or 8. Wow, what a drop-off. That's just terrible. That means that all of those other people found it more difficult than they thought it was going to be. But also, they didn't recognize the relevance of studying photography. after they left, or also the fun that could be had, the enjoyment. If it had been kind of 50%, I could have gone with it. But such a massive drop-off to me indicates that there's a real problem there. Now, I'm not in any way criticising the particular teacher that I was talking to. His job is to deliver a teaching platform, a series of lectures that he's told to teach with a series of outcomes that he's told that his students have to reach, and that's done through the government. However, I think the big problem is these young people aren't being encouraged to enjoy photography. They're being told to see it like any other subject, that they have to learn a series of facts and figures. They have to create work that, to be honest with you, has to fight to be creative and too often relies upon the idea of repetition of existing work. And in doing so, they lose any passion, or they don't create any passion within themselves for the medium of photography. They're also shown photography that only seems to exist within Pinterest and Instagram. Therefore, they have no idea about the contextual importance of photography. The particular teacher I'm talking about, I've known for many years, and I know that he does introduce his photographers to a lot of the greats and the masters of photography. But unfortunately, I think this feels too much to the students, just like history. I don't think it really connects with them. So what's the reason for me mentioning this on the podcast this week? Well, if you've got a child, a son or a daughter, if you've got a grandson, a nephew, a niece, whatever relative, or maybe you've got somebody in your family who you feel would really benefit from that kind of engagement with photography that perhaps you have, why not step in? Why not offer a little bit of informal mentoring? I certainly do that with my 13-year-old daughter, and I have to say, it does cause a little bit of a clash with the school system. When being told to create a self-portrait the other day and being told to measure and to follow a specific method, my daughter turned around and said, well, that isn't creativity. Art isn't about following rules and regulations and measuring things and everybody doing the same. Didn't go down too well at the school, but at the same time, I had to have a conversation with her to say we have to play the rules here, but I couldn't really disagree with her. In fact, I couldn't disagree with her at all. So what I feel from hearing these figures is that we have a major problem in teaching the creative arts, certainly at that age group from 13 to 18, certainly within the UK. If you're listening to this somewhere else in the world, please let me know what your experience is. I'd love to read out your letters on a future episode. As I say, if you are in a position to try and encourage younger people to get involved with photography in a way which is appropriate to them, to their age, to their digital experience, I think it's a really good idea to do it. Now, one of the other things, of course, I'm going to say, and you know I say it every week, and I never say it flippantly when I end the podcast. Increasingly, the people I'm talking to, especially a lot of my friends in the United States, are really struggling. A lot of my friends in the UK are also struggling. There seems to be a rise in the kind of belief that we can't have our own opinions and listen to other opinions and respect them. Everybody seems very angry at the moment, angry or defeated or scared, and none of these are good ways to be. So, as I say every week, but as every week, I really mean it. I really do. Please take care.